Welcome to another session of watercolor painting. This is our today's reference for Paint Your Style 2025, and let's dive into it right away. So I started with wetting the paper with diluted Indian yellow. As I moved down, I tried to create a gradient with adding a little bit of pyrrole red to my mixture of Indian yellow, and as you can see, it's pretty diluted. It's not very strong pigment, and now I'm going to try and blend it on the paper to get a gradient. So I'm going to go from the bead and then move down, and to make sure that I do not color the sun, which is nice and red, I am going to avoid going too fast here. I'm just trying to create a smooth gradient for my sunset blends. I just took out excess water from my brush, and as I move forward, I am being extra careful. Since the sky around the sun is blue, I am mixing ultramarine blue and then going around that area of the sun. Be careful to not color the circle. If you are not sure if you could manage this, you should cover that with a circular sticker or a tape. Just be careful around it so that you don't end up. So now you see there is a bead that was forming on the side because I had not taped my paper. I will go and take the bead out with the paper towel. I'm going to add an extra blue, little bit more blue in there so that my sunset is a little more dramatic. This is on the redder side, so I'm going to add a little more ultramarine blue. Make sure you don't have beads forming on the sides of your paper because they will blend into the paper and ruin your smooth blends that you have formed. Now we are going in for the second layer. I am going over with ultramarine blue, as you saw, and covering the sky to make sure that I have a sky where there is blue and also a little bit of shine of yellow or the sunlight peeking through. I'm trying to mix a little bit of blue, which is has a warmer tone. So what I'm mixing is ultramarine blue, pyrrole red, and I might just add a little bit of Indian yellow later. In my experience, adding Indian yellow generally makes the color muddy. Be mindful to not add too much of Indian yellow in there. This is the right mixture. We want to not lose the light in the painting, so I'm going to be very careful of how I use it. I also wanted a little more red tones near the sun to show the the sunset, the vibrancy. So as I mix the color, so I'm going to stop at this moment and take stock of what I want to do next. I'm taking a little bit of quin rose, mixing it with pyrrole red to get the pinkish red color that I want, and I want it to be dramatic. So I'm going to start with putting in reds above the sun to show the brightness and the sunset glow. While I do not want to go as dramatic as the reference, I'm going to try and create a little bit of reddish tones near the sunset, near the sun. Also, I'm going to paint the sun red. Wait for the blue to dry, or your background to dry before you go in painting your sun, because you don't want it, you want the circle to be nice and clean and do not want it to be blending in with the background, because you're not going for a cloudy sky, you're going more for a clean sunset. Try and use your brush with less water, and that will help you control the blends. I'm going to go in again to deepen the circle or make it darker, but at this moment I feel that the blue is wet, the blue around the sun is wet, so I'm going to avoid it. I'm trying to kind of create more drama above. The painting on the left is what I did in as a practice to just see if these blends work for me, and I like the way the softness has been in that, so I'm going to replicate it but have a little more of the glow. The orange is less on the left, so I'm going to go a little more on that in the right painting. As you can see in the reference, the blue around the sun is a little darker and deeper, so I'm trying to go for that color, but I don't want to I'm not going in for the purple tone, I'm going for a blue tone, and I'm leaning towards using ultramarine blue and neutral tint to get it to deepen for the mountain ranges, and then I will eventually think I will use indigo for the darkest mountain. So I'm now mixing ultramarine blue with neutral tint and going in for my first mountain, which is the lightest because it's the closest to the sun. I am going in directly without sketching it, but if you feel that you need to place your mountains ahead of putting the colors on, please go ahead and do that. The first mountain is just below the sun, so I have done similar thing in my painting. I'm going to pull the paint down to get a smooth blend. And now I made a mistake here. I didn't have heat gun handy, so I tried to wait for the paint to dry, but while I was waiting on the paint to dry, I colored the sun, and the paint was tad bit wet when I went in for the mountain ranges, so you will see that it is a little more soft than I would have liked it to be. I wanted a hard edge on the mountains, but it kind of merged into each other, so you will see that. But if you do have a heat gun handy, please do use that to dry your paper before you go in with the second layer of the mountain. Now I'm at the final stage of painting the darkest mountain. Here I'm going to use indigo, and I'm going to create a more creamy consistency paint, and I'm going to go and add very little water to this when I paint. So as you can see, the paint or the underlying layer is still wet on the right side, so I'm trying to paint on the left first so that the paper on the right dries up. I'm going to try and keep my paint consistency to be creamy to avoid any blooms to be formed. And this is a mistake that I did. I was being a little impatient and I did not have my blow dryer or the heat gun handy, so I could not dry the paper immediately. But if you do come across such a situation, try and stop painting at that moment and use creamiest consistency of paint to avoid dispersions or blooms on your painting. So as you see, since my brush doesn't have or doesn't hold too much water right now, it is not going to bleed into the other mountain range, and I can still salvage this situation. I like how this painting has turned out. I am very excited to see what you paint, and I hope you enjoyed painting along with me. Thank you for joining. Bye.